Okay. And we are recording, so I will hand it over to you, Sarah, to do your intro.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can all see me and hear me and see my deck. And technology will continue to bless us. I'm Sarah Campbell. I'm the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Program Coordinator here at USDA. So I work across the department and help coordinate all of our beginning farmer and rancher efforts. I'm going to talk a little bit about USDA broadly and generally and the work that we do and how it intersects and where it intersects with beginning farmers and ranchers, and then speak to specifically programs that are available directly for beginning farmers and ranchers and some of those targeted resources this evening. So it's a little bit of USDA 101 and then some farm programs, introductory information, and just some kind of info about what we've done with the latest farm bill and our coordinators. But like I said, I'm the beginning farmer coordinator. I sort of do anything and everything beginning farmers at USDA. I get to work on lots of fun projects. We have a small team here at USDA. We have regional coordinators who work with me and support our state coordinators. So all of you have a beginning farmer coordinator in your state. And I'm going to talk more about this later, but so we're a small team, but we're lean and mean and try to get lots of good things done. So, and I am also a beginning farmer and rancher. I raise livestock in Maryland and do direct sales to customers, and have a background in vegetable production. So I'm kind of familiar with a lot of the different sort of operations that beginning farmers have, and like niche and vegetable, we call specialty crop production as well.
Great.
So,
Sarah.
just a little bit of background here on USDA. It's a huge agency. It was started by Abraham Lincoln. So I find this framework to be pretty helpful in thinking about USDA. It's a very old agency, and it has evolved over time, and it's cabinet level. And within USDA, there are 29 agencies and like around 100,000 employees. We have offices abroad and in the US, and we serve every county. So we have staff delivering programs to farmers and ranchers for every county. And then that's just within, a couple of different mission areas. And there are lots of other offices. So it's a huge agency and it does a lot of work. And in my work as a beginning farmer coordinator, I collaborate with a lot of different agencies. I work with the Farm Production and Conservation Mission Area the most, but then I also work with our research arms, our Office of Tribal Relations, our Office of Civil Rights. So beginning farmers and ranchers really touches a lot of things at USDA. And so I end up collaborating with all of those. And I wanted to just highlight a couple of different agencies that might be interesting to you all as beginning farmers and ranchers to make sure that you're kind of aware of those resources. One of my frequent collaborators is AMS. It's the Agricultural Marketing Service. So they do a lot of work around local and regional foods. They have a local and regional foods policy court position, market news. They have a number of grant programs, both for organizations or groups of farmers around local food promotion. They also manage the National Organic Program, so that they are the holders of that list of farmers and farms that are certified organic, and you can verify farm status with them. And they do a lot of work on specialty crops. I collaborate with AMS in the local food space because so many beginning farmers and ranchers are doing work around local and regional foods or in part of local and regional food supply chains, and also data. They've got a nice kind of, they are keepers of really helpful information around pricing of specialty crops. And if folks have questions, plunk them here in the chat as I'm going along. ARS and ERS, so that's the Agricultural Research Service and the Economic Research Service here. So these are our main research arms. ERS publishes lots of reports and data on beginning farmers and ranchers. So this is just kind of something to be generally aware of. They fund research on beginning farmers and profitability studies, things like this, and looking at like patterns and trends. So I collaborate with them in a research space. NAS is our uh, sort of our big data wheelhouse here at USDA. So it's the Ag Statistics Service. They do the census every 5 years. They run special surveys. They do data and special tabulations. And just for your information, they do keep a lot of information that may be helpful to you all that you can access and navigate. They track things like land prices, rental prices for different types of cropland all over the country by county. So you can go in there and pull helpful information if you're looking at leasing and are trying to figure out costs, like average costs of land and rents. They can be useful for that. And every state also has a statistician who you can contact, and they can help you find relevant data or information. And they also support other USDA staff who are doing that work. And I've got here the link. You can also sign up to get counted. We want beginning farmers to get the Ag Census Survey. It's done every 5 years. It's a huge survey. It's a really important source of data for us, organizations like National Young Farmers Coalition, The Hill, everyone. We want to make sure that we are counting beginning farmers and doing a good job kind of understanding the demographics in that population. So as you get those surveys, please respond. And if you don't get them, you can sign up to be counted. NIFA is the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. It's another research and funding arm. They are, at least in the beginning farmer world, they are the folks who manage and deliver the Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Grant Program. This is a grant for stakeholders and service providers who work with beginning farmers and ranchers. So a lot of the organizations that you work with in your communities who may be providing resources to you, putting on farm conferences, doing technical training, they may be receiving BFRDP grant funds. There are not really many farmers who get this funding, but it's probably just useful for you to be aware of because they do support those service providers. They also are kind of the arm that where 4-H and FFA are run out of, as well as a whole bunch of other grants and research, that like veterinary, like student loan repayment program. They do a lot, but it is not necessarily primarily farmer facing, but a good resource to be aware of. And all of those BFRDP projects that are funded, I'll send Sanat the information. I'm sure they have it, but we have all of those projects, and any publicly available resources that have come out of those projects are available for farmers on farmanswers.org. But anyways, kind of here to just a quick overview and the meat and potatoes. So when we're talking about beginning farmers and ranchers at USDA and what resources we have for you, when we're talking about beginning farmers and ranchers, we're talking about folks who have been farming for 10 years or less. And we have resources for all types of beginning farmers, whether you're just seeking market information, risk management tools, actual working capital, disaster assistance. There is really something for everyone, and there is no one size fits all, and nor is there any typical beginning farmer and rancher. We work with operations of all types, sizes, and scales. So if you are looking for information about what programs and resources we have specifically that you can be accessing, I would go to farmers.gov/newfarmers. This is where we are putting lots of resources and information about our programs, whether it's conservation or funding, disaster assistance, kind of everything we do that farmers can access directly lives there. And then just another, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to pause and see. I got a message that some folks aren't or at least one person isn't able to see the screen. I wonder if there are others who are having that issue, they could maybe let us know in the chat. And then maybe if that is a wider issue that others are having, we can sort of stop sharing and start sharing again. Turn it off and on. That's really my only yeah, fix for this. So just let us know if you're having a challenge. with that in the chat now, and note that these slides will be sent out afterwards again, so that you can go through and read if there's just a couple of folks who aren't seeing them now. I'm not seeing anything else come up in the chat. So hopefully we're okay, but please let us know if you're having technical difficulties. And again, we'll be sending this out along with the recording. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. So yes, yeah, and I was just going to clarify. So we have beginning farmers and ranchers, which is sort of a broad term, but as far as our program and eligibility definition, we're looking at 10 years or less. We also work with what we call historically underserved farmers and ranchers. The sort of statutory language in the Farm Bill on that is socially disadvantaged, but we use the term sort of historically underserved, and generally we're talking about folks who have been subjected to some type of discrimination or prejudice because of their identity. So for USDA, when we are talking about historically underserved groups, we are talking about African Americans, American Indians, Alaskan Natives, Hispanic, Asian and Pacific Islanders, and female farmers. So that is some language that you may see and come across, and then a lot of the incentives or kind of eligibility around historically underserved producers, a lot of it does apply for beginning farmers and veterans as well, but there are some differences. So just something to be aware of. In terms of getting started with USDA, I really encourage folks to start developing a relationship with your local office. Connect with your state beginning farmer coordinator. So this is the person who I previewed earlier. We have one in every state. This is a position that was created in the Farm Bill. So now every state has someone whose job is to help beginning farmers and ranchers navigate USDA, direct them to resources, and provide some technical assistance in terms of making program recommendations or just making sure that they're getting connected with the relevant resources. They are FSA, so that's the Farm Service Agency, NRCS, Natural Resource Conservation Service, RD, Rural Development, or RMA, Risk Management Agency employees. So primarily our farm production and conservation mission area, and they are all representing agencies who have offices at the state level and county level, and who are delivering programs to farmers and ranchers on the ground. So get connected with those folks. Get connected with your local service center. You can visit farmers.gov if you don't know where your local office is. Also, if you are not yet farming, but are thinking about farming or want to get started, I recommend reaching out to that state coordinator in the state where you think that you might be farming, because they will be able to make helpful recommendations in terms of other resources that might be useful to you as you start preparing to farm. And it is really important to connect with that local office and get to know the staff. In normal times, not COVID times, do a lot of work through those service centers, so those local offices, and they will get to know you, make sure, understand your operation, and that way they can make sure that you know about program eligibility or updates or new things that are coming, and just really understand you and your operation, and kind of give you that tailored and personalized service and program delivery. And also, you should really think about your local office staff as kind of being part of your bench. I say it takes a village when you're raising a farm or growing a beginning farm operation, and they can be part of that bench. They will be able to provide technical assistance. If you have a loan with us, your loan officer is going to just be like a really critical person to be in communication with as you are kind of building your team of experts and your own support network. So just some general information. You do not have to own farmland to participate in our programs, but you do need a farm number. And you would get that at FSA through the Farm Service Agency. So in order to get you entered into our systems, they will need your ID. If you have like an LLC or some kind of entity, those documents, a deed, or if you are renting, just a copy of your lease, and they will map your farm in our software system and kind of get you plugged in. And you should make an appointment to do this. And if you do and you have all the paperwork, it shouldn't take that long. So just a quick overview, Farm Service Agency, near and dear to my heart because I've spent a lot of years working within FSA. But the Farm Service Agency, I think about as kind of like two big buckets, working capital and disaster assistance. So farm loans and farm programs. FSA has a variety of farm loan programs to meet different types of needs, whether you are just wanting to do some type of improvement art project on land that you're already farming, expanding an enterprise, or like getting started purchasing a farm. So they've got loans of all sizes and scales, from micro loans all the way up to guaranteed loans, varying sizes. And the thing about FSA is the Farm Service Agency is the lender of first opportunity for farmers who can't get credit elsewhere. So if you're down by another lender, or they may refer you to FSA if they feel like you're borderline, or they may reach out to FSA for a guarantee. So we don't compete with the traditional ag lending community. So our interest rates are lower. We have some different like rules around eligibility, and how our loans work. And then with disaster assistance, uh, so farm programs, they have disaster assistance and then a couple of other different programs. And they really focus on helping producers recover when there are natural disasters or serious economic disruptions like the current pandemic. And then they have a couple other programs like the Organic Cost Share program to help offset costs of organic production and certification, and low interest loans for commodity storage. So that could be fluid milk, produce, uh, refrigerated truck, those types of things. So just a couple of loan options to highlight here. We have our direct loans, so that's farm ownership, operating, and our microloans, our guaranteed loan programs, and then the beginning farmer down payment loans. This is a specific loan for beginning farmers to help beginning farmers access farmland, and can be a very useful tool for folks who are maybe transitioning or trying to take over a family farm and buy somebody out. Like I said, our loans, the limits are set in the Farm Bill. So they recently increased, but our operating loans are up to 400,000, ownership 600,000, micro loans up to $50,000, and then guaranteed we're at 1.776 million. So, and then the down payment loans. So I'll talk a little bit more about that because that one's like a little bit trickier to understand, but generally these are the loan limits. And our guarantees for beginning farmers and ranchers and underserved farmers are at 95%. We will guarantee with a lender up to 95%. So just if you're not familiar with lending, when I'm throwing around these terms like operating loans, we're talking about loans that you would use to purchase equipment, livestock, production expenses. So some farmers just have an annual operating note and they're buying seed and chemicals, on an annual basis and paying off a loan. Or they may be having a slightly longer term loan, but it's not necessarily as long as like an ownership loan. So operating loans are typically repaid in 1 to 7 years. In terms of our farm ownership loans, these are longer term loans, so they can be repaid in up to 40 years. And that's where you would be borrowing money to purchase farmland, make capital improvements, conservation projects, and they would also cover closing and other related expenses that come along with buying a farm. Just a note on guaranteed loans, so they are made and serviced by a local lender and funded by them, and then we basically underwrite that loan. So the guaranteed operating loans have 1 to 7 year terms, so ownership's up to 40. So like our other loans, but the loan rate, that interest rate, is determined by the lender, not FSA, and there is a fee associated with that. So there's a guaranteed loan fee that is paid to FSA. All right, so the down payment loan, this is the one where FSA and a lender usually work together. And so the beginning farmer actually provides 5% down, and then FSA lends up to 45% of that loan, and then the other lender comes in with 50% of the loan. So this loan, I have seen it be used by folks, like I said, who are maybe taking over a family farm pretty frequently, but it's a great and useful tool. And because FSA does 45% of that purchase, you can actually save a lot on interest. So if you're interested in this loan or think maybe it might work for you and you have that type of capital for the down payment, it's worth talking to your local office about. So that's kind of just a little bit on loans. I could talk about farm loans for like an hour and a half just on loans. So that was just kind of a really quick and dirty overview. If you want to know more about loans, please reach out to your local office. Also, the National Farmers Coalition did put together a really great guide on applying for loans. I see Sanaz has just dropped a link in here. It's an awesome guide, lots of really good information about loans and how to prepare an application. We also now have a new tool on farmers.gov on our financing page. We have a loan discovery tool, so it's interactive and you can answer a number of different questions and it'll kind of basically spit out what type of loan might be a good fit for you and has a whole like packet that you can download a PDF on how to apply for that loan and more information on those different types of loans. All right, I'm gonna keep plugging through here. So NRCS, this is the Natural Resource Conservation Service. They're the agency that does conservation technical assistance. They can come out to your farm, help you evaluate and mitigate environmental issues, environmental resource concerns. They offer conservation programs, and they also have cost share and financial assistance for some of those conservation practices. So they can do things, for example, like stream exclusion. If you have livestock and you need to, fence them out of the stream to improve the water quality, or they can help you with environmental hazards in your operation. They also are the agency that runs the high tunnel cost share program for growers who are interested in season extension. So I think of NRCS as kind of like the gateway agency for a lot of beginning farmers and ranchers because they are so well known for that high tunnel program and it's really popular with beginning farmers and ranchers. But they have a lot of other resources. There's some also as beginning farmers, they do prioritize funding for them with a number of the like equip and conservation programs, and they have an advanced payment option. So beginning farmers and ranchers can take advantage of getting an advanced payment instead of paying for some type of conservation practice up front and then requesting reimbursement. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to talk to your local office about that. All right, RMA, so this is the risk management agency. They regulate and supervise the federal crop insurance program. So they deliver some programs themselves as an agency, but they also oversee and manage the approved insurance provider. So like your local crop insurance agent is what we call an AIP. And so they work with the risk management agency and they are offering a product that is similar to our guaranteed loans, like underwritten, guaranteed, and oversawn by us on this. And then they have a whole bunch of other things like the whole farm revenue protection program. So if you are at the scale in your business where you are, needing to start thinking about risk management tools or like crop insurance agents, you can use that link there to reach out and we have a national list of those who are approved insurance providers. FSA also has a couple of risk management tools. So we have NAP, which is the non-insured crop disaster assistance program. So if you are growing crops that are not eligible for traditional crop insurance, you may be able to work with our FSA and farm programs and get coverage or disaster assistance for those things. So lots of specialty crop growers, like when I worked in Virginia, we had a lot of berry growers who use NAP through FSA because that wasn't a crop that was covered by traditional crop insurance. And for beginning farmers, we like waive administrative fees. There's discounts on like, additional coverage. So if you are, thinking about risk management and you're at that point in your business, talk to your local office and see kind of where you fit in terms of coverage. All right. And then another agency to be aware of is Rural Development, RD. So they are similar to FSA in that they don't compete with traditional lenders, but they work with folks who may be not eligible for traditional home loans, but their focus is on purchasing or building homes in rural areas. So they only can deliver loans and operate in areas that are considered rural. And this is based on the census and for folks who are within certain income brackets. So that is an agency that we often refer folks to who maybe don't want to get into the business of farming, but they want to live in a rural area or like they want a homestead. So some of those RD home loan programs may be a better fit for them. RD also uh, delivers the value added producer grant, so VAPG. So this is a grant for farmers who are either getting into or expanding some type of value added production in their operation. It can cover a lot of different types of costs, including like feasibility studies. So this is for folks who want to do, what we call value added. So that might be making jam, or you want to start like marketing grass fed beef or certified organic. You can talk to that local state specialist. They usually work out of the state office about the value added producer grant, and they can give you lots of information about that. This one's really popular with alcohol production, actually. We see a lot of like wineries and those types of businesses or folks who are making like jams things taking advantage of this program. And, personally, I'd like to see more beginning farmers taking advantage of this. I think a lot of states have some stretch goals around that, so worth exploring. RD also delivers REAP, so this is the Renewable Energy for America program. It's another grant or cost share program that is available directly to farmers and ranchers. And this is for making energy efficiency improvements. So sometimes it's a loan and sometimes it's a loan or a grant combination. It kind of depends on the project. We see a lot of farmers using this to retrofit structures and make them more energy efficient. So maybe like installing LED lighting, that type of thing. And also just worth noting and for your awareness with VAPG and REAP, these are what we call cost share programs, just like a lot of NRCS programs are cost share, where the producer has to shares in that cost and then USDA reimburses them or splits those expenses. You can, for those cost share programs, use FSA for the capital. So you can get a farm loan to, cover your side of the cost share. And then just a couple of notes about COVID. I would be remiss if I did not flag for this. So all of our service centers are still open for business. I think right now the majority of offices are conducting most business online or by phone or by appointment only. Um, the status of the local offices is sort of constantly changing and evolving as the COVID situation in that county evolves. But folks are dropping off applications in drop boxes. We're doing a lot more online. But if you need to go to your local office, you need an appointment, call and make an appointment, and don't just show up because they might be closed or be operating by appointment only. And you can go to farmers.gov/coronavirus to check the status of your local office. And so with that, hopefully you all are aware of CFAP. That's the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program that FSA rolled out. Those application windows have closed, but it was, one of our economic disaster programs where we were trying to help farmers kind of recover from some of the losses they experienced. And if you didn't take advantage of that program, but you are still struggling, and I really do recommend talking to your local office. In terms of program applications, enrolling people, providing technical assistance, we're still doing that. We are just kind of evolving how we do business. And our agencies, especially at the local level, are being given some latitude and flexibility. So, thinking about something like equip, where maybe you had a deadline for implementation or a construction project for a conservation practice that you're implementing, but you're not able to, just talk to that local office. We understand that folks are experiencing challenges and, there's a shortage of construction materials or, folks aren't completing jobs on time because of the pandemic. So just talk to that local office. FSA, in sort of a similar vein, if you have a loan with a farm service agency and you are worried about not being able to make any of your payments or kind of what's going to happen with your loan, talk to your local loan officer. They have things that they can do if they are made aware of the problem before a payment is missed. So right now we have the debt set aside and some servicing flexibilities. So folks are able to shift some of those payment deadlines. We've got emergency loans, or they just might need to sort of restructure a loan. We do have flexibilities. You just need to be in communication with that local office and make them aware of an issue before it's too late. And then one last resource I always like to plug is our partnership with SCORE. USDA partnered with SCORE, and so we are trying to fit farmers with mentors. So if you're interested in being a mentor or you're seeking a mentor, you can go to score.org/USDA. It's a free service. Mentorship is really important. We advocate for it. It can also help you with your loan eligibility. Our loan officers like to see folks working with a good mentor. So make sure that you take advantage of that resource, or you know, seek out a mentor if you don't have one. And with that, I actually think I might be on time. Woohoo! So yeah, it looks like we might have a couple of questions here, or folks can start putting them in the box.
Thank you, Sarah. There was a request to talk a bit more about the EQIP program.
Sure, I am blanking on the acronym, but I will tell you what ECOP stands for.
The Environmental Quality Incentives Program.
Thank you.
It is an alphabet soup of a lot of acronyms. So if there was one also that you didn't catch and want us to go into more detail on, just drop it in the chat.
When I got hired, I made flashcards with all of the acronyms because there are so many. So EQIP is, all of our conservation programs are voluntary, but basically EQIP provides financial and technical assistance to help address natural resource concerns. So that could be improving water and air quality, ground and surface water, erosion, soil health, wildlife habitat, like drought mitigation. Our NRCS folks, last time I was in California, I went and visited a whole bunch of operations where the NRCS staff had helped farmers with like design irrigation systems or put in irrigation. They help farmers implement rotational grazing systems. So kind of anything and everything that is conservation minded, and the practices that are funded or their priorities do vary from state to state and across the county. So I generally try to stay in a very broad general space here because it can be so specific regionally given what the environmental concerns might be, like in California, water, or like the sort of stocking densities are going to be really different across the country, and what they recommend in terms of like grazing and forage. So, but if you have some type of environmental resource concern, talk to your local office. Also, they come out to your farm. It's great. You can kind of talk to them, talk about your concerns. They can make some recommendations. Maybe you're not really sure like what type of guidance you need, or if you want more help understanding a problem that you might have, reach out to that local office. The folks at NRCS love providing technical assistance. So, but yes, and EQIP is also where that the high tunnel program is like technically under.
That. I think there was somebody who unmuted earlier, and I'm sorry that Bria or Bree, I put you back on mute. But if you have a question, or if there's anyone who's not in front of a computer and needs to unmute to ask a question over the phone, please feel free to do that now. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any come through. Maybe folks are just taking a minute to process, or if you have, questions, once you see the slides, as Sarah mentioned, you'll have a state beginning farmer and rancher coordinator that you can contact, or obviously the young farmer staff is always here to decipher those acronyms. So before I switch into my part of the presentation, I just wanted to acknowledge what a wild and tumultuous moment that we're in. We did not expect to be doing this presentation after a siege at the Capitol and all of the racial injustice that was so obviously on display. Um, didn't expect that we'd be doing this on the day where we watched a historic second impeachment vote. I know for me, working in DC, um, it feels like a lot, and I just want to appreciate that folks are here on the line to learn more about uh, federal programs and the ways to work with agencies and to use this in our advocacy work going forward. It's a wild time, and these things, these programs don't always work out as we want them to. So just your willingness to be on the line and engage with us at Young Farmers and stay engaged, it makes me feel a lot better about what's going on. So again, thanks for joining in. So I'm going to try and share my screen here for just a really brief presentation about how our sort of lobbying advocacy work ties into all the things that we have talked about just now. Just 1 second while I figure out how to do this with Zoom. Okay. If I hit play from start, are folks seeing a big slide? Okay, great. Great. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes talking about how these programs fit in with our advocacy and what sorts of things the federal policy team would want to hear about from you as you're engaging with these programs. So what does this look like for us in DC? The things that we talk about from the policy side of things, a lot of these programs obviously need very specific funding to operate. So that's a way that you can get engaged, is talking about prioritizing certain ones of these programs with funding. If there are programs or offices that aren't working as well as they could for you as a beginning farmer or a farmer of color, then making some tweaks to those programs is something that we can always talk about doing, and creating new programs or offices. If there's a type of assistance that you need that you're just not seeing, that's another way that it ties in. So these are text heavy, but we'll be sending them out later too. So Sarah mentioned the Farm Bill. We have one of these upcoming webinars about the Farm Bill and about the annual funding process. It's called Riding the Omnibus. That's happening, I think, in about a month. So if you're interested in going into more of a deep dive on that, make sure you register for the other webinar. But a lot of these programs that we've talked about, like the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, they get their money set for 5 years. We have one shot to get more money in the Farm Bill. A couple of the other programs ask for funding each year, so we have more opportunities to talk about how important those things are, and make sure our members of Congress know that we want to see those funded. So I put in a couple of examples here of successes that the National Young Farmers Coalition in partnership with other organizations has had, and just getting the amount of funding that we asked for. So there's a new Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production that has to ask for its funding every year, and we were successful in getting the amount of funding that we requested for that, $5 million for it last year. Same for the Heirs Property Relending Program. That's a new program that was created to provide loans to farmers of color, mostly Black farmers in the Southeast that are dealing with heirs property not having a clear title to their land, which can cause problems for participating in some of these programs. And that's one that we have advocated for funding. And the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program, or what's called the 2501, which is a similar program for farmers of color and veteran farmers. Those are also programs that we, when you hear us or see us sending out appropriations action alerts or funding action alerts, these are the kinds of things that we're trying to prioritize and get money for. If there are changes to existing programs or offices that we want to see, that can happen either through congressional action. Sometimes USDA has a very formal way of requesting feedback. We also have a presentation called You Write the Rules that's coming up later in the webinar series about how to go through that kind of technical process of fixing existing programs. And also sort of informal advocacy. So a couple of examples here. We talked a bit about EQIP, and Amanda had a question about that before. There's a new process that we helped to get into the Farm Bill that USDA is required to let both young farmers and farmers of color know that they can get their payment in advance, so they don't have to pay for, their cover crop seeds or their fencing and then get reimbursed. They can have that payment made up front. And we were seeing that just not a lot of farmers were utilizing that that benefit. And so a change to the program was that we wrote into the Farm Bill that USDA needs to let farmers know about that option. The national and state beginning and farmer rancher coordinators are written into the Farm Bill. So that was something that started out sort of less formally and then got written into law. So, when you reach out to those state coordinators, know that that's a Farm Bill win that young farmers worked for in DC to have that one-stop person to go to. We've talked about some clarifications in the Food Safety Modernization Act for folks who are doing value added, who are sort of smaller scale, direct scale producers, that just made it clear through that formal process that they wouldn't have to meet as many regulatory hoops. And then informal advocacy, we also just let USDA know, even if they don't have a formal rulemaking about when programs are and aren't working. And there are sometimes there's enough wiggle room for them to make changes, like in the coronavirus food assistance program too. Hopefully a lot of folks were able to take advantage of that while that was open, but that second round, partially came from getting feedback from farmers that the first round was challenging to use, and us having sort of an informal opportunity to tell USDA what was and wasn't working. So lots of different avenues to get involved in tweaking programs if you try one out and see that it really wasn't the best fit for your operation, or if there was some challenge. We have a lot of avenues to make tweaks. And the last thing that I wanted to highlight is that there are also things every once in a while that don't exist yet, but would be super helpful. And we can make that happen either through congressional actions, or sometimes USDA can sort of reorganize and make new programs or offices. So I've talked about the Office of Urban Agriculture. That was a new section of USDA that was created in the Farm Bill. I also mentioned the heirs property relending program. Those were both new in the 2018 Farm Bill, and things that young farmers advocated to create. USDA has also internally had some programs or offices. I note here the regional climate hubs. There's a local food policy specialist position that they hire at the Ag Marketing Service, which Sarah mentioned at the beginning of her talk. So, there's staff who are always thinking about that local and regional side of policy making at USDA, and those are sort of internal things that they have been able to do. So with all this information, if you're not already a member, if you haven't already signed up for our policy updates, you can text farmers to 40649 and get policy updates for us, or you can hop on our website and sign up for email alerts if that's an easier way. But as you're trying out these programs, you know, and want to see them get better or have ideas to make them better, this is where those opportunities will come up to sort of hop into quick action through these text alerts. Sarah has mentioned this several times, but just, you know, if there are programs that seem like they could be a good fit for you, then feel free to try and apply, and know that we at Young Farmers are here. We recognize that not everyone always has a positive experience with their local agents, although you know, we have a hope that that is changing, and we recognize that there's historically a lot of distrust. So if there is something that we as the Young Farmers Coalition can do to make that process feel easier, more transparent for you, please feel free to reach out to us anytime at policy@youngfarmers.org, and we're happy to be helpful in any way that we can. So that was my very brief presentation about how all this ties into our policy work, and we've got, I think, plenty of time for questions. I think I got a question about the regional climate hubs. So I think that I would have to go back and look at the number of these, and I put them in my presentation. I should have brushed up my research on this, but there are several what are called the climate hubs, basically centers for climate scientists in each region to really be thinking about the impacts of climate change, how to adapt and how to mitigate it. Recognizing that, as Sarah said too, each region has really different climate concerns and ways to be involved in mitigating climate change. So I think that there are ways to get engaged, but a lot of it is sort of research and sort of sharing out of information from the climate hubs about sort of best practices in your region. And I will see if I can find a link to drop in the chat while other folks may have questions that they want to ask.
I did get a question about experience and eligibility and the timing of like that 10 years, which I thought was a good one. So when we're talking about 10 years or less, we're talking about like your time as a, you know, an operator of your own business. Working for another farmer is good. That is great. If you have management experience and you have been making day-to-day managerial decisions, whether it's production or budget, those are all really good things from a farm loan application perspective. But you know, working for another farmer, or if you like grew up on a farm, those are not things that would disqualify you from any of the beginning farmer benefits. It's, you know, we're talking about your time with your own operation, and all those other things are just good experience to have that, you know, would be evaluated as part of your application package.
Thanks, Sarah. Does anybody else have a question that they would like to ask? Or, and if you are on the phone and you can't type it into the chat, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask it out loud if that's easier. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any. So if you would like to reach out to me, my email address I think was on that first slide, but I'll type it into the chat. If you have a question for me, you can reach me at sanaz@youngfarmers.org. Keep an eye out again for this information, and we'll be making the recording available to members as well. And again, putting in a plug for the other sessions in this series. The next one is going to be hosted by a couple of my colleagues about designing with intention and making sure that racial equity is a part of your policy advocacy. Should be a great session, and we've got them going through March. So definitely sign up. Oh, we had one question come in from Barry about CSP, the Conservation Stewardship Program. So Sarah, do you want to take that, or you want me to take a crack at it?
Oh, you're welcome to. Yeah, I'm not sure what specifically, so absolutely take a crack at it and I'll add in.
Yeah. So the Conservation Stewardship Program, I tend to think of this as sort of the next level up from the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. CSP requires that you have sort of a baseline of conservation already in place on your operation. And there's also the opportunity to do sort of multiple practices in a bundle with CSP. So if you were looking to put into place an entire conservation plan and you have one or two practices already going, CSP would be a good place to go. If you're looking to sort of just start one practice, the Environmental Quality Incentive Program is a good place to start. But the same sort of benefits in terms of higher payment rates do apply for beginning farmers and farmers of color in Conservation Stewardship Program as well.
I think that is a really great sort of summary and breakdown. And if folks are interested in conservation planning, your local office and your local NRC staff would love to work with you on that. That is one of the things that they do is conservation planning. So you don't necessarily have to have like a cost share program that you want to apply for. I think that's why a lot of folks come to NRCS, but if you just need planning assistance, they are available for that. And then, they have a lot of other programs. Another one is CRP TIP, so the Transition Incentive Program, where landowners who are turning over, like leasing or selling land to beginning farmers that is currently in the Conservation Reserve Program are eligible for additional payments. So it's like an incentive for landowners to turn landowner to the next generation. So, and NRCS also does easements. So there's a lot in the conservation wheelhouse for folks or in that whole area. So like we've been saying, talk to your local office.
Okay, thanks for that question. If anyone has any last thoughts, I'll just hang on for one more moment. In the meantime, thanks again for everyone for participating, and please keep an eye out for the materials that'll go around after this and a survey so you can let us know what was helpful, what wasn't, how we can keep improving this winter webinar series. We had another question about this being available as a recording. Yes. If everything has gone well on my end, the recording should be saved, and we will be putting it up in our member portal. So if you are a member of Young Farmers, you'll be able to log in and see it there. If you're not, we'd love to have you join. And if the membership is a barrier for you in any way, please reach out to me and we're happy to work with you to make sure you get the information that you need. Okay, great. Well, with that, I'm gonna stop the recording and we'll see you all at the next session. Thanks so much for joining.